Welcome to the NCS Women in Tech podcast. I'm Wynthia. I'm heading up Next Digital at NCS, and recently I was one of the 100 recipients of the inaugural SG 100 Women in Tech. I know from my personal experience how important role models have been to my own career, and I've roped in a number of women leaders in NCS to join me in this podcast. I'm just going to throw a bunch of questions at them and have an interesting conversation about what it means to be a woman in the tech sector today. And hopefully, our conversations will encourage more women to join the tech industry. And that is how the podcast is born. It is my pleasure to invite our guest for today, Esther. Hi, Esther. Welcome to our little NCS studio here. Can you let everybody know what is it that you do at NCS?
Hey, Wynthia. Thanks for inviting me. It's really my pleasure to be here today. So let me just do a bit of introductions of myself. I manage the digital consulting team in NCS, part of the Next organizations. Our team actually is responsible for delivering the digital transformation services to our client. And I always say is that we are the digital business architect in our client's digital journey. Right? And we deliver from the digital roadmap all the way to the end-to-end implementations for our clients.
Is this what you've always wanted to do?
I always say that being a consultant it's always in my DNA of my career. I started off being a consultant. I was with KPMG Consulting, Accenture. So that's how I built up my career. Then later on, I've joined the payment industry. So I spent 10 years before I came back to NCS.
Was it difficult moving from management consulting to payment and then now to NCS, which is a lot more technology focused?
I wouldn't say it's challenging. I think there's always something new to learn from each of the steps that I take. Right? And that's also excite me. Right? I think staying doing every day the same thing is sort of not my cup of tea. Right? So being challenged along the way, being able to leverage on some of the skills and experience I've learned, and move on to the next steps. It's something that I would call exciting.
So what makes your field so exciting?
In a world that is constantly changing, and the very common saying is changing is the only constant, right? So I think that is the part that makes it very exciting, right? Knowing that this is something that will impact the well, maybe not the world, but also your society, the people surrounding you, right? Or the country, right? And something that you do is really making a difference, right? That makes it exciting.
You know, there's a perception that the tech industry is very male dominated. Has that been your experience?
Fortunate that we're in Singapore. I think Singapore in general is a very equal opportunities environment comparatively, right? Everything is relevant, right? So comparatively is more fair, right? But at the same time, in the technology field, it is a very male dominant industry, right? I think for different reasons, and part of it is to being able to stay on top of what is happening, right? Is a factor that will affect whether people stay in this industry or not, right? Particularly to female who tend to carry multiple roles in their life.
So what do you think organizations can do better in helping women overcome some of these challenges?
I think that, like I mentioned earlier, women carry different roles in throughout their life. Some people I would say that they may have some priority at certain stage of life, and as a company, if we can understand this and support them, that will encourage a female to continue in their career along the way when they are taking their priority in other parts of their life.
I mean, you certainly have has a great career over all these years and playing the different roles in the industry. What advice would you give to women, young women especially, who are starting out in their career and considering joining the tech sector?
I think being a woman in tech, the, being a female that wants to build your career, stay curious about things happening around yourself, around the world, around the society, it will help.
So, Women in Tech is really talking about diversity. What does diversity mean to you?
Every individual brings different background. It brings in different background, right? And there's we have different experience, right? Now it's about there are being inclusive. Of all these different experience come from different people. Is about that's diversity.
With the focus on diversity in many sectors, including the sectors, I noticed that there are more and more mentoring programs for women. Um, what do you think about mentoring programs? Do you think it helps?
Definitely. I think that uh, being able to pass on our experience to the younger generations is something that I think is not just something that we should be interested, but also take it as a responsibility, right? So I think doing the mentoring program that we can actually share our experience and coach our younger generations is very meaningful, right? So it's yes, the answer is yes for me.
So, for our listeners out there who are leaders and managers of teams, what do you think they can do to encourage diversity?
I think being fair and being open minded is very important, right? Because when you are trying to be inclusive, you don't put a lens on looking at whether that person is male or female, or whether it's come from different places.
And also, leaders, women or men, may have blind spots themselves that they may not be aware of, right?
Definitely. And I think we all do. We're all human being, right? And that's the beauty of it, right?
So, throughout your career, when you first started out until now, where you're managing quite a good sized team, how has your leadership style changed?
I was very fortunate that I brought up in an environment that was quite encouraging. So I was very exposed into having a very open mind in terms of managing our own work, to managing a team of people, to managing practices.
Are there any women who inspired you in your professional or personal life along the way?
Definitely. I'm very fortunate to have met you in my career too. And so I think along my career, there's a few ladies that has definitely influenced my career. Right. Of course, I also have there's a fair amount of male colleagues or supervisor has helped me along the way. Right. And so I think um, being able to work with very capable female, right, is that has opened my perspective, right? That is actually achievable, right? I think it's very important that we as a female, we believe that we can achieve that. There's that help us to continue in our career.
I took a look at the senior leadership team in NCS, and I noticed that she's 40% of the team is actually women.
That's actually very impressive.
Yeah, for the tech industry, I believe NCS may be one of the top few companies that has such a strong number of women in the senior leadership team. Yeah.
You're definitely right. I think even when I was in payment industry, right, that the ratio is not as high. I think NCS is quite impressive when it comes
So
into female in their career.
So if you think about the women that is thinking about entering the industry today, what do you think are the things that they need to look out for? What do you think are the things that they need to do to be on a good career track?
I always believe that being able to balance this and strike the balance in life is very important, right? And so, being a woman, I think we have to be honest to ourselves, right? And we have to also take a look at what is what is need in our life at different stage of it, right? And so, being able to honest to our own selves and to our career, this would really help us to stay in the tech along the way.
It's been very interesting to listen to your story, Esther. Thank you for being our first guest at our podcast. So, maybe as a final question, what advice do you have for all our listeners out there?
Thanks, Wynthia, for having me. This is really my pleasure to be here and having these conversations. I think I would say that go back to what I mentioned earlier. And that stay curious. It's important element, right? To stay long in this career, right? Because technology is always changing. So have fun. Really enjoy the ride. That will be my advice.
Yeah, because life is too short, right?
Definitely.
And that's a wrap for NCS Women in Tech podcast. Thank you for joining me in this podcast. If you have feedback on our podcast or would like to join us to carve out a career in tech, follow us on our LinkedIn page, NCS Group, or feel free to drop us a line at reachus@ncs.com.sg.